It was only after my death that I learned the truth. The twins I treasured, my son and daughter, were the bastards of my wife and her cousin. My illegitimate son leaked classified intelligence, leading to the massacre of my eldest boy, my real son, and 10,000 of his soldiers. My family name, the Sterling name, was dragged through the mud, and we were all executed for treason. And them? They built their new lives on the bones of my family, basking in the glow of wealth and power, free and easy. Then I opened my eyes. I was back on the very day I first walked in on their affair. Eleanor, Julian, in this life, I will burn you to ashes. One moment, my soul was adrift, a helpless phantom forced to watch as the last of my family was executed on trumped-up charges of treason. Their hot blood felt like it was splashing against my skin. A tidal wave of hatred and powerless despair seized me, and everything went black. I opened my eyes again to a sharp, intrusive sunlight. The faint scent of flowers hung in the air. Above me was the familiar porch ceiling of the home where I'd lived my life, the Sterling estate in Alexandria. I raised a hand, dazed, and plucked a single cherry blossom petal from my cheek. My gaze drifted involuntarily to the southeast corner of the garden. The cherry tree. I planted it myself for Eleanor 30 years ago. Now its canopy was a sprawling dome of pink and white, a brilliant, painful splash of color against the sky. All the memories of our shared history, our supposed love, now felt like a bitter joke at my expense. Walter, my voice was steady, betraying none of the corrosive fury churning in my gut. My old aide, Walter, stooped forward. General, your orders. Cut down that cherry tree. It's an eyesore. Dig up the roots and burn it all. Walter's face went stiff, his eyes wide with a disbelieving shock. He knew how much I'd always prized that tree. He remembered the time our eldest daughter, Sophia, had asked to pick a single branch, and I had flatly refused her. General, he started to protest, but the words died in his throat when he met my cold, empty stare. He changed his tune. Right away, sir. I'll see to it. He turned and hurried off to find the groundskeepers, his back radiating a deep unease. I had never doubted Eleanor. Never. I was the youngest son of the esteemed Sterling military family. She was the youngest daughter of the influential Senator Vance. We'd known each other since we were kids, growing up together in the D.C. political swirl. Our friendship was deep. Our families had always hoped we'd unite our legacies through marriage. After she graduated from college, I made a point to ask her privately. Eleanor, I'd said, try to be the honorable man I was raised to be. Is there someone else? If there is, you have to tell me. I'll tell our parents that I'm the one with second thoughts. I'll make sure you're not put in a difficult position. I remember she blushed, a shy smile playing on her lips as she looked down. Alex, she'd murmured, her voice full of a soft, girlish hope. After all these years, you still don't know how I feel. She'd gathered her courage and met my eyes, her own glistening. Alex, the one I want. It's always been you. She pressed a small hand-stitched pouch filled with cedar into my hand, the stitching clumsy but earnest, and ran off. Because of that shared history, and because my deployments to the Middle East kept me away for long stretches, I always felt I owed her. I was determined to make up for my absence. Our home was a sanctuary for her. There were no affairs, no whispers of impropriety on my end. From the sand-blasted desolation of my command posts, I wrote to her every day, worried she was lonely. I sent crates of strange and wonderful things I collected from the local markets back to D.C. I would have torn my own heart out and handed it to her if she'd asked. Wasn't that enough? Why couldn't she bear the loneliness? The old shrapnel wound in my chest ached with a dull, throbbing pain, a phantom of my rage. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the cedar pouch she'd given me all those years ago, and tossed it to Walter. Burn this too. I had Walter call Senator Vance and his wife, asking them to join me for a discussion at the estate. When their town car arrived, I met them at the gate before they could even get out. I ushered the confused couple directly into my own armored SUV and told Walter to drive to the Shenandoah Valley, to a secluded resort there. Alex, what is this all about? Mrs. Vance finally asked, her patience wearing thin. Senator Vance remained silent, but his sharp, questioning eyes were fixed on me. My expression was a mask of indifference. "I'm taking you to see a show," I said flatly. "Oh, spectacular show." As I said the word spectacular, a humorless smile touched my lips, and I glanced at them both. Then I closed my eyes, feigning sleep. Mrs. Vance started to ask another question, but a sharp look from her husband silenced her. The rest of the drive was shrouded in a heavy, oppressive silence. In my past life, Eleanor used the excuse of a wellness retreat to meet her cousin, Julian Croft, at this very resort. Worried about her, I had driven out to surprise her. Instead, I was the one surprised, walking in on them together. The shock triggered a massive heart attack. The old wound, the stress, the betrayal, it was too much. When I next became aware, it was to the sight of my own funeral. White wreaths and black suits filled our home. I tried to ask a frantic question of one of my staff, but my hand passed right through him. That's when I realized I was dead. I turned and saw the memorial portrait in the Grand Hall. It was my own face staring back at me, under my name, General Alexander Sterling. My darling wife and her cousin had pushed me from a hiking trail overlook, staging my death as a tragic fall. "General, we've arrived." Walter's respectful voice from the driver's seat cut through the torrent of my hateful memories. I stepped out of the SUV and led the Van Cess directly toward a private cabin tucked deep in the woods at the back of the property. Eleanor had it built specifically for her tryst with Julian. I'd already sent one of my most trusted men ahead to deal with Eleanor's assistant, so the area was unnervingly quiet. As we got closer, the unmistakable sounds from inside the cabin reached us. The low, intimate moans and gasps of a man and a woman, punctuated by their breathy, whispered words. "Tell me, Eleanor, who's better, me or that brutish soldier husband of yours?" "You, of course. It's always been you. He could never compare." The words hit Senator and Mrs. Vance like a physical blow. Their faces went chalk white. Mrs. Vance staggered, nearly collapsing. I raised my foot and kicked the door clean off its hinges. The scene inside was one of frantic chaos. Two figures, tangled in sheets, scrambling to cover themselves, their faces masks of pure panic. "Dad! Mom!" Eleanor shrieked in terror. "Uncle!" Aunt Catherine. Julian stammered, his face ashen, his body trembling uncontrollably. Having already lived through the heart-stopping agony of this moment once, I felt nothing now, not a single ripple of pain. "Walter," I said, my face impassive. "Get my men. Tie these two shameless animals up. Gag them, roll them in that disgusting blanket, and drag them back to the estate." Senator Vance, jolted from his stupor, stepped forward, his voice choked with fury. "Alex, you can't. This is a private family matter. Think of the scandal. The reputation of the Sterling and Vance families will be destroyed." I shot him a sideways glance and scoffed. "Did you forget, Senator? Once a woman is married, she belongs to her husband's family. How I deal with her is the business of the Sterlings." My voice turned to ice. "What your family's reputation has to do with me, I no longer care." Without giving them another look, I turned and walked away, leaving them to stare at their daughter's ruin, their faces a mottled mess of white and red. Senator Vance looked at the grim, stone-faced security men who had appeared as if from nowhere, their loyalty clearly to me and me alone. He didn't dare take another step, for I sat in the main hall of the estate, my eyes closed. From the courtyard came the relentless, ugly sounds, the heavy thwack of leather belts against flesh and the agonized screams of Eleanor and Julian. My men were not gentle. Suddenly, I felt a burning gaze on me. Eleanor's voice, raw with hatred, cut through the air. "Alexander Sterling, if you have to blame someone, blame yourself. You were always gone, deployed for years at a time. What did you expect?" My eyes snapped open. I glanced at her, my lip curling in a sneer. "Eleanor, if you were truly in love with this piece of trash, you could have just asked for a divorce. I would have given it to you. But you didn't, did you? You wanted the prestige and wealth of being Mrs. Sterling, but you couldn't give up the comfort of your lover. You can't have it both ways." It seemed the beating wasn't severe enough if she still had the strength to twist the truth. "Hit them harder." Soon, Eleanor's words were reduced to nothing but painful sobs. Julian broke first. General Sterling, have mercy," he shrieked. "It was Eleanor. She was lonely. She seduced me. Wasn't my fault. Please, just let me go. I am no obedi. Eleanor's screams stopped abruptly. She stared at Julian in shock, her voice trembling. Julian, you told me you were sick with love for me. You said even after I married another, you would spend your life protecting me, with no regrets. Julian's eyes darted around frantically. That was just pillow talk to make you happy. I didn't mean it. I've said that to dozens of women. What about when I had pneumonia? You climbed the 99 steps of the National Cathedral on your knees to pray for a recovery charm for me, she pleaded, as if grasping at the last straw of their shared lie. I bought it from a street vendor outside, he stammered. It cost me $5. And the cherry with hairpin you gave me? You said you carved it yourself, a testament to your love. I bought that too, Julian blurted out, desperate to distance himself. $10. It cost me $10. Eleanor's body went rigid. The full, humiliating truth finally crashed down on her. She had been made into a complete and utter fool. A moment later, a chilling, maniacal laugh erupted from her, tears streaming down her face. Ha, 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 Julian, $5 and $10. You played me for a fool. A complete fool. She became a wild thing, struggling against the men holding her, trying to claw at Julian, her face a mess of tears and snot, laughing and crying as her world shattered completely. Just then, Ryan and Olivia burst into the hall, stopping short at the chaotic, ugly scene before them. They rushed to Eleanor's side, helping their disheveled mother up before turning to glare at me with fury. Ryan's voice was laced with accusation. Dad, how could you do this to Mom? Even if she made a mistake, this is something you deal with behind closed doors. Thanks to you, this is going to be all over the news by morning. What about the Sterling family's reputation? Olivia, her voice thick with tears, chimed in, Dad, whatever Mom did, you can't just. Her words were cut short as I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. The crack echoed in the hall. Olivia stumbled back, her cheek instantly turning a shade of angry red. She stared at me, her hand covering her face, her eyes wide with disbelief that I, the father who had always doted on her, would ever strike her. Ryan immediately moved to shield his sister, his face a mixture of shock and anger. Dad, even if she spoke out of turn, you can't hit her. What's happened to you? We're just trying to protect the family's name. The family name? I let out a cold, harsh laugh. I spun and delivered an even harder backhand slap across Ryan's face, snapping his head to the side. When your mother was sleeping with another man, trampling the Sterling name into the dirt, why didn't you talk to her about the family's name? You both walk in here, you don't bother to ask what happened, you don't spare a single thought for whether your father's heart has been ripped out of his chest. No, you immediately start yelling at me for hurting your precious, shameless mother. My gaze was like a dagger, pinning them both. Well done. Truly well done. You're Eleanor's children, through and through. I had truly loved them. When Ryan was born, I was on a rare leave from my command. I was the one who took him from the nurse's arms, so tiny and perfect. I was the one who taught him to shoot, who hired the best tutors, who saw in him the future of our family. When Olivia complained about the cold winters, I bought a sprawling estate in Florida and put it in her name. When she showed no interest in her business school classes, I just laughed. A daughter of Alexander Sterling doesn't need to impress anyone with a resume. The best young men in the country will be lining up for you. I love them far more than my eldest son, Marcus, who was always by my side on deployment. I always felt the twins, being younger, needed more of my affection, more of my protection. It was my way of making up for all the years I was away. But now I saw it clearly. All that unconditional love, all that devotion, it was all wasted on a pair of vipers. Eleanor, seeing her chance, pushed her children aside. Her voice was a low, dramatic rasp. Ryan, Olivia, it's my fault. Don't blame your father. Go on, go back to your rooms. Don't worry about me. Her performance, of course, only made Ryan and Olivia glare at me with even greater fury. 6. After dinner, I announced to everyone present my decision to divorce Eleanor. As expected, Ryan and Olivia had the most extreme reactions. My eldest son's widow, Amelia, and my eldest daughter, Sophia, said nothing. I waved for Amelia to take her children and Sophia back to their wing of the house. Ryan spoke first, his tone dripping with a sense of entitlement. Dad, Mom made a mistake, but she's been punished and she knows she was wrong. Why don't you just send her to the Florida estate to reflect for a while? In a few years, when everyone in D.C. has forgotten about this, we can quietly bring her back. If you divorce her now, you're making the scandal permanent. There will be no going back. My career, Olivia's engagement. It will all be ruined. Olivia followed up, her voice cold and hard, carrying a clear threat. Father, I absolutely will not allow you to divorce my mother. I stared at this daughter of mine, her eyes like ice, thinking her political connections gave her the right to defy me. A cold laugh echoed in my mind. You fool. Do you really think Governor Thorne loves you? He doesn't want you. He wants the power and influence that comes with the Sterling name. My decision is final. The divorce papers will be filed with the court tomorrow. My gaze swept over them both, my tone leaving no room for argument. If you feel such a deep connection to your mother that you can't bear to be apart from her, you're free to pack your bags and leave this house with her. I will not stop you. In an instant, the two firebrands fell silent. Their faces became tight and unnatural. They exchanged a quick, panicked glance before looking away. 7. The next morning, before I could even leave for my office, Walter rushed in. Sir, Governor Marcus Thorne's motorcade is at the front gate. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. So, Olivia couldn't hold her nerve. She called in her powerful fiancé for backup, just as foolish as her real father. What they didn't know was that I was waiting for Thorne to walk right into my trap. Show the governor to the front parlor. Offer him coffee. I deliberately took my time, letting him wait before I made my way downstairs. In the parlor, Governor Thorne, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, was calmly sipping his coffee. But beneath that carefully constructed veneer of calm, I knew he must have been furious. He had spent months courting Olivia, seeing the Sterling family's political capital as the key to his presidential ambitions. Now, just as he was about to lock it down, this sordid scandal threatened to derail everything. How could he not be seething? I took a seat across from him, my expression neutral. Governor Thorne, to what do I owe the pleasure? Thorne adopted a humble posture. General, I came today to ask for a favor. Regarding your decision to divorce your wife. I was hoping you might reconsider, or at least postpone it. I picked up my own coffee cup, stirring it slowly, not even bothering to look at him. This is my family's private business. I fail to see why it concerns you, Governor. To be frank, General, Thorne said casually, I have a deep affection for Olivia, and I intend to ask for her hand in marriage. But if you divorce her mother under these circumstances, Mrs. Sterling will be disgraced. It would make it difficult for Olivia to be a suitable First Lady. I finally looked up at him, my voice tinged with sarcasm. Governor, even if I don't divorce her, after her mother's behavior has become a talk of the town, I doubt Olivia would even be considered appropriate as a junior staffer on your campaign. Thorne was clearly prepared for this. That's precisely why I need your help, General. I'm asking you to make a public statement clarifying that yesterday's events were all a misunderstanding, that your staff made a mistake, and that your wife is innocent. If you say it, the rumors will die. The room was silent for a long time, so long that the pleasant mask on Thorne's face began to crack. I set my cup down, the porcelain making a sharp clink against the saucer. Fine, I sighed as if defeated. Olivia is my most beloved child. For the sake of her future, her happiness, I'll do as you ask. I'll swallow my pride. Hearing this, Thorne's eyes lit up with an unmistakable look of triumph and relief, as if he had just won a major strategic victory. General, you are a man who understands the bigger picture. He left satisfied, his entire posture radiating confidence. I stood on the porch, watching his motorcade pull away, my face a mask of ice. I turned to my aide. Walter, get the car. We're going to the White House. Now, Thorne had no idea. I was waiting for him to deliver himself to me on a silver platter. In my previous life, Thorne won the presidency. Olivia became his first lady, a celebrated figure on the world stage. Eleanor and Julian, as the parents and uncle of the first lady, enjoyed unimaginable wealth and privilege, their status built upon the graves of my family. In this life, Thorne's dream of the presidency ends here. The moment he stepped in my house today, he sealed his own fate. He ensured that he would only ever watch from a distance as the highest office in the land slipped further and further from his grasp. And the first fatal piece of leverage I needed, he had just handed it to me himself. I was on my knees in the Oval Office, putting on the performance of a lifetime. Mr. President, it's over for me. My wife, Eleanor, she cheated on me with her own cousin while I was deployed. I caught them, and in my anger, I had my men drag them through the streets. But now everyone is blaming me. They say I have no regard for my family's honor. But what about my honor? What about my broken heart? I decided to divorce her, but my own children, they resent me for it. And today, I paused, sneaking a glance at the president. He was rubbing his temples, a look of exasperated amusement on his face. When he saw me looking, he barked out a gruff laugh. What? Spit it out, Alex. Stop being so dramatic. I lower my head, feigning reluctance. Well, you told me to say it. Don't get mad at me later. Today, Governor Thorne came to my house. He told me I absolutely could not divorce my wife. He even told me what to say. My voice broke, and I started sobbing again. He wanted me to tell the press that Eleanor is innocent, that my security detail grabbed the wrong person. Mr. President, can you believe the nerve? That's like him stabbing me in the heart, and then ordering me to tell everyone how good it feels. The only sound in the Oval Office was my overwrought weeping. President Thompson sat behind the resolute desk, his face unreadable, his fingers drumming a silent, thoughtful rhythm on the polished wood. 15 minutes later, the president's chief of staff personally and politely escorted me out. As I stood on the steps of the West Wing, I wiped my face with my sleeve. The grief was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. Years ago, when the president was just a young, unfavored politician, he was sent on a pointless fact-finding mission to a war zone. My father became his mentor there, and I personally saved his life on the battlefield. Without the full backing of the Sterling family and our network, his path to the presidency would have been far from smooth. President Thompson despises indecisiveness and disloyalty. He made his choice for a successor, the vice president, clear from day one. His support is unwavering, a fact well known to everyone in Washington. He will not allow anyone, for any reason, to threaten his chosen line of succession. Governor Thorne, consider this a gift. I do hope you enjoy it. When I returned to the estate, I found Eleanor sitting in the parlor, sipping tea. Ryan and Olivia were gathered around her, laughing and talking. It was a perfect portrait of a happy, loving family. Seeing me, Ryan jumped up, a wide, conciliatory smile on his face. Dad, you're back. I knew you couldn't bear to part with Mom. She was just telling us how you wrote her 9,900 love letters from your deployments. She's kept every single one. Olivia chimed in, her voice sweet and bubbly. That's right, Daddy. And remember when Mom had that terrible pneumonia? You flew back from the front lines overnight. They said you pushed the transport plane so hard you nearly burned out the engines. You barely left her side, giving her medicine yourself. Everyone in D.C. said there was no man more devoted than you. Are you finished? My voice, cold as a tombstone, shattered their carefully crafted atmosphere of nostalgia. The smiles on their faces froze. They finally seemed to notice the complete absence of warmth in my eyes. Eleanor quickly stood up and approached me. Alex, it's not Ryan and Olivia's fault. I asked them to let me out of my room. Blame me? I laughed inwardly. Eleanor was a master manipulator, using our children to dredge up these old memories, hoping to rekindle some lingering affection, some hesitation in me. In my past life, it might have worked, but not this time. Not ever again. Ignoring their performance, I barked, Walter. My old aide, who had been waiting silently on the porch, entered immediately. Sir, my eyes swept over the three of them, their faces now beginning to pale. My voice was like iron. Go and make the arrangements. I am convening a family meeting in the library. I want the family lawyers present. We're going to conduct a DNA test. Publicly, I added, and find the staff member who dared to release Mrs. Sterling from her room against my orders. Fire them and have them escorted off the property immediately. I will not tolerate traitors in this house. As the words left my mouth, I saw the blood drain from Ryan's and Olivia's faces. Their eyes were filled with a raw, primal panic. Eleanor's fear was understandable. But Ryan and Olivia, their reaction, could it be? Do they already know? Did Ryan and Olivia know all along that they were not my children? In my past life, after my family was executed, I had assumed Eleanor only told them the truth then, so they could enjoy their new lives without guilt. But looking at them now, it was clear they had known for much, much longer. If that was true, then the death of my son Marcus, the slaughter of his men, and the downfall of the Sterling family. It wasn't just Eleanor and Julian. It was them. They orchestrated it. Ryan and Olivia had been playing a part their entire lives, acting alongside their dear mother and their uncle. A grand performance just for me. Excellent. Just excellent. 10. Ryan was the first to recover, his face contorting into a mask of outrage and wounded pride. Father, how can you suspect us? Just because Mother made a mistake, you're going to deny that we are your own flesh and blood? Eleanor seized her cue, collapsing to the floor and sobbing as if her heart were breaking, a martyr suffering the ultimate injustice. Alex, I wronged you, I know I did. You can punish me however you want. I won't say a word. But the children are yours. They are your children. If you don't believe me, I'll prove their innocence with my own life. With that, she scrambled to her feet and lunged headfirst toward one of the marble support pillars. Mom! Mother! Ryan and Olivia screamed, rushing to catch her, clumsily breaking her fall. A thin trickle of blood ran from her forehead, where she'd managed to connect with the stone. Olivia looked up at me, her eyes brimming with tears of accusation and hatred. Dad, look what you've done. Look what you've driven her to. She made a mistake, yes, but you can't slander us and push her to suicide. Ryan, clutching his mother tightly, glared at me. Father, are you truly this heartless? The three of them huddled together, crying and accusing, all while sneaking glances at me from the corners of their eyes, gauging my reaction. I stood with my hands clasped behind my back, watching their pathetic, transparent melodrama unfold. I felt nothing. If anything, I thought there wasn't enough blood. Walter, escort them to the library. If any of them refused to walk, have them carried. The library was brightly lit. The family senior attorneys were already there, waiting, looking deeply uncomfortable and murmuring to one another. My uncle, the eldest living Sterling, spoke first, trying to de-escalate. Alex, are you sure about this? Let's think this through. Whatever Eleanor has done, I can't imagine she would dare to be deceptive about the Sterling bloodline. To make such a scene, what if the test proves they are your children? How will you ever face them again? My gaze cut to him, cold and sharp. While I was recovering from injuries stateside, she had the gall to carry on an affair with her cousin under my own roof. What do you think she was capable of when I was stationed on the other side of the world? I have no idea if they're my children. For all I know, she doesn't either. The raw menace in my voice silenced him. He swallowed hard and said no more. Another senior family member, a cousin of my father's, pointed a trembling finger at Sophia, Ryan, and Olivia. Alex, you're not thinking clearly. Look at the three of them. The eyes, the set of the jaw. They're the spitting image of you. How could they not be yours? A resemblance? I scoffed. There was a corporal in my command who looked more like me than I do, but he wasn't my son. You don't determine a bloodline by looking. You determine it with science. 11. Walter handed me a sterile collection kit. I pricked my own finger without hesitation, squeezing a drop of blood into the vial. Sophia, my eldest, stepped forward, her face calm and resolute. She took a lancet and did the same, adding her sample to a second vial. The room was silent. All eyes were on the technician I had brought in from a private lab. He worked quickly and quietly. A few minutes later, the results for Sophia appeared on his laptop screen. A match. The lawyers murmured in relief, the tension in the room easing slightly. I glanced at Eleanor. A flash of utter disbelief crossed her face. She looked at me, and when she met my icy stare, she quickly looked away. Eleanor, they are both children you gave birth to. Why did you treat Sophia with such cold indifference her whole life? Was it only the children you had with your lover who mattered? When it was Ryan's turn, his hand trembled so badly he couldn't manage to prick his own finger. Losing patience, I grabbed the lancet and his wrist and did it for him, a quick, merciless jab. His blood was collected. The technician ran the analysis. The room held its breath. The result flashed on the screen. 0% probability of paternity. No, that's impossible. Ryan grabbed my arm, his voice cracking with terror. Dad, I am your son. The test. There's something wrong with the test. Olivia, her face ashen, echoed his panic. He's right. The lab made a mistake. There's no way we're not your children. Fine, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Run it again. I would grant them this one, final, hopeless wish. Eleanor was practically vibrating with anxiety, beads of sweat dotting her brow. 12. The technician ran the test again. My sample and Ryan's. Under the agonizingly slow watch of everyone in the room, the new result loaded. 0% probability of paternity. This time, there was no outburst. Only a shattering silence. Ryan and Olivia stared at the screen. The hope in their eyes died, replaced by a vacant, hollow look of absolute ruin. How can this be? Ryan whispered, his voice a hoarse croak. Olivia's legs gave out, and she crumpled to the floor, muttering, It's over. It's all over. Eleanor shoved her way through the stunned onlookers and stared at the screen, a wild, unhinged shriek tearing from her throat. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. I was so careful. She stopped abruptly, her eyes snapping to me, wide with a dawning, horrified realization. You knew, she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You knew all along. You did this deliberately. This was all a game to you. I stood with my hands behind my back, looking down at the wreckage of my family, at their complete and utter despair. I remained silent. 13. A dead silence hung in the library. Everyone was waiting for my final judgment. My gaze swept over the broken woman on the floor and the two ashen-faced young adults who were, until this moment, my children. I waited until the last flicker of hope in their eyes turned to black despair. Only then did I speak, my voice heavy with a carefully rehearsed sorrow. Eleanor, you have defiled this family. Your crime is unforgivable. I will be filing for divorce. I paused, turning my head, my voice catching with emotion. But Ryan and Olivia. For 15 years, I raised them as my own. They were the children I held in my arms. I can't find it in my heart to cast them out. I squeezed my eyes shut, as if in immense pain. When I opened them, my gaze was sharp, sweeping across every lawyer and family member in the room. What happened in this library today stays in this library. If a single word of this leaks to the press, if my children's reputations are harmed in any way, you will be making an enemy of the Sterling family, and you will find that I can be unforgiving. I turned to the shell-shocked pair. Ryan, Olivia, nothing has to change. You will always be a Sterling in the eyes of the world. With that, I let my body slump, as if the ordeal had drained me of all strength. Leaning heavily on Walter, I walked slowly out of the suffocating room. The moment I was back in the sanctuary of my study, my stooped shoulders straightened. The grief and exhaustion vanished from my face, replaced by a chilling coldness. Walter, sir, have one of the junior kitchen staff, someone talkative, start a rumor with their friends and other households. Just a whisper, that the Sterling twins might not be the general's children. Nothing more. Ryan, Olivia, enjoy these last few days of peace. They will be your last. 14 within days. The whispers had mutated into a full-blown D.C. scandal, spawning a dozen lurid and wildly imaginative theories. I heard the senator's daughter was already sleeping with her cousin before the wedding. Can you believe it? General Sterling, a national hero, raising another man's kids for 15 years. Ryan stopped leaving the house. His so-called friends from Yale and Georgetown suddenly ghosted him. At his exclusive club, conversations would stop when he entered a room, only to be replaced by snickers and pointed comments about his parentage. He became a social pariah. Olivia was unceremoniously dumped by Governor Thorne. Refusing to accept it, she stalked him, ambushing him outside his office and at fundraisers, weeping about the promises he'd made. She was met with the cold shoulders of his security detail. Finally, at a high-profile charity gala, she made her move. She managed to spike the governor's drink. Her plan backfired spectacularly. The story leaked instantly. Governor Thorne, his suit disheveled, stormed out of a private room, his face a mask of thunder. In front of half of Washington's elite, he furiously denounced her as a shameless, desperate woman trying to entrap a public official, and declared in no uncertain terms that he would never marry her. Olivia, her life in ruins, came running back to me, her hair wild, her makeup smeared. Father, you have to help me. Governor Thorne. He was with me, and now he's denying it. He has to marry me. I looked down at her, my voice laced with disdain. Are you that obsessed with him? So much that you'd resort to drugging him? She just sobbed, unable to answer. Fine, I said slowly, my voice flat and cold. If you cannot live without him, then I will grant you your wish. A flash of crazed joy lit up her face. She thought she had won, but she wasn't met with a white wedding dress and a state ceremony. Instead, a plain black car arrived at dusk and took her, not through the front gates of the governor's mansion, but through a service entrance in the back alley. In her previous life, she had a wedding celebrated by the nation and became his revered wife. In this life, she entered his home in the most humiliating way possible, as an unofficial, unacknowledged mistress, a woman with no name and no power for anyone to abuse. The next time I heard news of Olivia, it was several months later. She had apparently threatened the governor's new fiancé and was now residing permanently in a private, high-security psychiatric institution upstate. 15, just as he did in our last life, Ryan secretly began working for Governor Thorne's political machine. One day, he accepted an invitation from Congressman Wallace's son, Wallace being one of Thorne's key allies, to a polo match. Not long after, Ryan's driver came tearing back to the estate, screaming that Mr. Ryan's leg had been broken in a fall and that Congressman Wallace had beaten him afterward. I flew into a theatrical rage, jumped into my car, and sped to the polo club. When I arrived, Ryan was writhing on the ground, and Congressman Wallace was still red-faced with anger. Without a word, I launched myself at Wallace, tackling him to the ground. We rolled in the grass, a chaotic mess of flying fists and shouted curses as I defended my son's honor. Predictably, the incident ended up before the president. In the Oval Office, I shed all my military dignity. I wept, beat my chest, and howled, Mr. President, you have to give me justice. Wallace broke my boy's leg. The doctors say it's a career-ending injury. He's crippled. His life is over. What is he supposed to do now? As I cried, I watched the White House physician out of the corner of my eye. He had just finished examining Ryan's x-rays and, with a grave expression, gave the president a slight, definitive shake of his head. I felt a smirk rise and quickly suppressed it. Congressman Wallace was trembling with fury. Mr. President, with all due respect, it was Sterling's son who played dirty. He deliberately tried to injure my son during the match, hoping to take him out of the running for the Olympic team. I was furious, I admit, but I was provoked. Lies, I screamed, pointing a finger at his face. Your family has always been jealous of my son's talent. You used this as an excuse to destroy his career. Wallace was stunned. Alex, you're delusional. My anger reached a fever pitch. Don't think I don't know what this is about. This is Governor Thorne getting back at me. He had your son set up this match to hurt my boy. The moment I said Thorne's name, the color drained from Wallace's face. That's slander, he sputtered, looking frantically at the president. Sir, I have no illicit connection with the governor. General Sterling is making baseless accusations. President Thompson, high on his throne of power, remained impassive. In the end, he split the difference. He reprimanded us both for behavior unbecoming of public figures, fined Wallace a symbolic amount, and dismissed us. Back at the estate, I had the whimpering Ryan moved not to a hospital, but to a small, isolated guest house on the far west side of the property. I instructed Walter to post 2 guards there who didn't speak English. They were to deliver 2 meals a day. No visitors, no doctors, no medicine. Today's entire drama was a script I had written. The congressman's son falling from his horse, my own operative, a man who can spook a horse from 100 yards away, was responsible. Ryan's leg? It was a simple fracture, but in the chaos of our brawl, I had gotten my hands on him. With a single, expertly applied twist, I'd shattered the bone beyond repair. The move served 2 purposes. First, it exposed the link between Wallace and Thorne, weakening the governor's power base. Second, it permanently neutralized the traitorous bastard who was once my son. In the sweltering heat of the Virginia summer, the wound, uncleaned and untreated, began to fester. It rotted. Maggots were born. To his credit, Ryan had some grit. He reportedly used a steak knife to carve the dead flesh from his own leg. He screamed for me day and night, cursing my name. I never once set foot in that guest house. Outside my study window, by the blackened stump of the burned cherry tree, a single, defiant green shoot had begun to emerge from the soil. And in the guest house, Ryan's infection finally overwhelmed him. Consumed by fever and despair, he died alone, without a sound. On the same day Ryan took his last breath, Eleanor, in her desolate room at a remote convent in West Virginia, also faded away. After the divorce, the Vance family, desperate to save face, had quickly and quietly sent her there to live out her days in obscurity. I, in turn, sent one of my own assets to care for her. The poison was a custom compounded marvel of pharmacology. Colorless, odorless, and requiring 3 doses over 3 days to take root in the system. Once it did, there was no antidote. The victim doesn't die quickly. They simply experience, day by day, the sensation of their internal organs slowly dissolving, a relentless and escalating agony that lasts for exactly 49 days. I unfolded the list of enemies I had long ago committed to memory. My finger traced down the names, each one crossed out. Finally, it landed on the last name at the very top. His status was the most elevated. Therefore, his death would have to be the most spectacular. I didn't expect the opportunity to come so soon. The president, in a move to consolidate power for the vice president's upcoming campaign, began systematically stripping his political rivals of their committee chairmanships and public influence. Governor Marcus Thorne, despite his powerful family connections, was publicly censured for ethics violations, a humiliating and career-ending blow. The night before he was scheduled to testify before a Senate committee, he made his final, desperate move. All hell broke loose. A coordinated cyber attack hit critical infrastructure around D.C., while a violent protest, secretly funded by Thorne, erupted outside the White House. It seems the operative I had planted in his inner circle, who had been whispering poison in his ear for months, had finally convinced him to walk off the edge of the cliff. The city was in chaos. Thorne, seeing his gambit failing and federal agents closing in, breached the White House perimeter in a last, suicidal act of defiance, brandishing a weapon and charging toward the West Wing, screaming the president's name. In that critical moment, I stood on a nearby rooftop with a rifle, my eye to the scope, my heart as calm as a frozen lake. The crack of the rifle shot was lost in the city's din. The bullet found its mark. Thorne's body jerked to a halt. He looked down in disbelief at the red stains spreading across his chest. Then his eyes found mine across the distance. He collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. A traitor shot while trying to attack the president. The official story wrote itself. Amid the blare of sirens and the swirling chaos, my mind played a trick on me. I thought I saw them. Marcus, my true son, my father, my brothers, all the Sterlings who had been wrongfully executed. They were standing on the far side of the square, their forms hazy, nodding at me with faint smiles. Their figures slowly faded, but their silent message imprinted itself on my soul. It's done. For the rest of your life, live for yourself. 19. When the dust settled, I submitted my resignation. Washington, D.C. was no longer my home. Its backroom deals and shadowy games were a poor substitute for the honest clarity of the battlefield. I left my title, my estate, and my fortune to my daughter, Sophia, and my son's widow, Amelia, and their children. Then I drove west, toward the vast, empty landscapes of Montana. Out there, under a sky bigger than any I had ever known, was where a soldier like me belonged. It was a good place for an old general to finally find his peace.